Good evening and welcome. I am Amarachi Ubani. Tonight, the Lagos State Governor Akinwumi Ambode seeks exclusion of local governments from sharing formula as National and State Assembly lawmakers discuss next stage of 1999 Constitution Amendment in Lagos. Again, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and former Commonwealth Secretary General Emeka Anyaoku call for Nigeria's return to regional system of government. Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka insists Nigeria's unity is negotiable, says dialogue will end years of marginalization and resource control. And Gambia's President Adama Barrow orders probe of assets acquired by former leader Yahya Jammeh.
On Business News tonight, Royal Dutch Shell declares force majeure on Nigeria's Bonny Light crude oil exports.
While on sports news, Roger Federer moves within one win of a historic 8th Wimbledon title after beating Thomas Berdych in straight sets to reach the final.
Chief Justice of Nigeria warns newly sworn-in judges against impunity, demands strict adherence to rule of law.
We begin tonight with a call by Nigeria's former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and the former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Emeka Anyaoku, who say that they're not ready to shift grounds on their calls for restructuring, which they say is a remedy for Nigeria's recurring leadership problems. While the former Vice President is reaffirming his earlier position on the need to reduce power at the center, Chief Anyaoku is insisting that a return to regional system of government will hasten socio-economic development of the country's regions.
The agitations and debates for restructuring appears to be getting more attention as several political heavyweights in Nigeria continue to lend their support to the call to restructure. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is one of the high-profile personalities in this hall to discuss Nigeria's unity and national integration in the face of ongoing agitations for restructuring and secession. In his remarks, the third Secretary General of the Commonwealth identifies restructuring in terms of leadership as the solution to Nigeria's socio-political problems.
Restructuring will be a panacea of most of our current challenges.
He further explains that such restructuring that will reduce the 36 states to 6 federated units will reduce the do-or-die politics at the center.
The powerful center that we have, which breeds the do-or-die competition for the control of that center, I would suggest that the 36 states, they should remain as parts of the 6 federating units. They should become, say, development zones within the 6 federating units.
In the same vein, the lead speaker and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar advocates the need to reduce powers of central government.
Restructuring to me, therefore, means effecting changes to our current federal structure. It means devolution of more powers to the federating units with the accompanying resources.
According to the former Vice President, restructuring that gives more powers to the states will enable them to generate more resources for regional development.
After restructuring, states will get more resources than they are currently getting. They are simply lazy.
The debate and agitations for restructuring has been on for several years. Some political watchers say there is an urgent need to address it now, as it poses a serious threat to national unity.
Also worried about the recent agitations and calls for restructuring of Nigeria's democracy is the Chargé d'Affaires at the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria, Mr. David Young. He's asking Nigerians to go about finding solutions to the nation's challenges in a peaceful manner. Ms. Young was guest in our flagship program, Sunrise Daily.
I think one thing when you talk about these restructuring debates, and it's been very striking to me as I've talked to people around the country about restructuring, that you talk to 10 Nigerians about restructuring and you get 15 opinions, you know. And I think that it's a concept or a slogan that means very, very different things to people in different regions. I think ultimately it does come down to resources and how resources are used, and that's a big challenge. But I do think that again, the debate about those resources, how they move forward, it's key that that be done respectfully and democratically and peacefully within the overall context of the unity of the country.
And while the agitation for restructuring continues, the joint committees of the National Assembly and some lawmakers from across the 36 state houses of assembly today continue the next stage of deliberations on the ongoing amendment of the Constitution. They say efforts are ongoing to ensure the completion of the process before the 2019 general elections. The Lagos State Governor, Mr. Ambode, who declared the retreat open, appealed to the lawmakers to look into the interests of the states and other federating units which have their powers domiciled in the federal government. Our political correspondent, Sheon Okibaloye, tells us more.
Protests and agitations across the nation, the issue of restructuring is on the lips of many Nigerians. At the center of it all is a debate that the Nigerian constitution is not a people's constitution, which some say that is the foundation of some of the challenges confronting Nigeria. After an unsuccessful effort during the 7th Assembly, the 8th Assembly has risen against time to fix the 1999 Constitution. And here in Lagos, they are gathered for a retreat. Joint committees of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and also representatives of state houses of assembly, are deliberating on the critical areas which needs to be amended. There is a timeline to achieve their goal.
We are the representatives of the people, and that's why on their behalf we assembled here. Based on our experience on the last exercise, we've decided to break this particular one into separate bills. Our belief is that this exercise needs to be concluded before the election process towards 2019 will commence.
The conversation began with the governor of Lagos State, who speaks on areas which he thinks need urgent fixing in the Constitution. His thoughts on the administration of local government is rather interesting. As some clamor for autonomy, Mr. Ambode believes the sharing formula should exclude the tier of government.
Since local governments are to come under the purview of states, and which one of the things we're propagating is that local governments should, based on Section 7, should actually be the concern of state houses of assembly. Allocation to them should be shared to states, as they can have as many local governments as they wish to have.
In the midst of the agitations across the country, some of the lawmakers say they hear what the average man on the street is saying, and they hope to take those issues on.
More powers belong to the federal government, more resources belong to the federal government, and the states are now salary-paying centers. You cannot have one policeman in every polling unit in Nigeria because we don't have that number. More than half of the policemen in this country are involved in VIP protection as a result of the fact that we have too many federal parastatals. We need to unbundle these things.
Restructuring can come in many different forms, and the constitutional amendment is a part of it. So yes, the All Progressive Congress is committed to the idea of re-engineering the structure of the government of Nigeria.
But what about the 2014 confab? Any chance to infuse the recommendations?
It might not, because it has not been formally presented to the Parliament. I'm talking in terms of the House of Representatives and the Senate. But if they do come, we'll look at those things. And like I said, it's a continuing exercise.
The National Assembly is pressed for time as it hopes to get the amendment done before the 2019 general elections. Practically speaking, the amendment process does not come cheap. And again, all the amendment process will have to be assented to by the president in the end. That is a story of a political perspective to the old conversation. Sheon Okibaloye reporting for Channels Television News.
Just outside the gate of the venue of the deliberations, a group of protesters gathered to demand a proper local government administration system. The protesters, many of whom are local government employees, again reiterated some of the issues under consideration, especially local government autonomy.
Under the scorching Lagos sun, right in front of the Intercontinental Hotels, the venue of the Constitution Amendment Retreat, solidarity songs, chants and some dancing to get the needed attention to their protest. The inscriptions on the placards partly explain their clamor. The agitation is basically on the administration of the local government.
Our grounds is that now that our lawmakers are talking about autonomy, we want them to understand what the public stands for in the area of autonomy. What do they stand for? Nobody is against autonomy, right? But what we're saying is that salaries and allowances of workers of the primary school, teachers and non-teaching staff be extracted the way it was lumped into local government to either a matter of first charge from the federation account or the state government paying.
A few hours later, leaders of the National Assembly emerged from their meeting room.
We are here to register and to make it very clear to our legislators across this country that the three unions are working together toward achieving an autonomous, independent local government system in our country so that the connectivity between the grassroots people and democracy will be enhanced. So we are here to listen to you and convey your feelings and your requests and demands to our colleagues and our leaders in this hall, that we are holding this conference or retreat, and in fact the National Assembly will hear this in Abuja as well.
Lately, protests and agitations arrive across the country. The voices seeking attention on critical economic issues all point to the need to address the very essence of our nationhood. Shonwa Kimaloye, reporting for Channels Television News.
Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka is not in support of the agitation by some groups in Nigeria calling for a breakup along ethnic lines. The literary icon is rather asking for a forum to negotiate and discuss the country's unity, a position supported by the Bayelsa State Governor, Seriake Dixon. Professor Soyinka was speaking at a colloquium to honor him and other Ijaw literary icons organized by the Bayelsa State Government.
The performance flagging off the literary session in honor of the Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka. Poets, literary icons and dramatists from across the Niger Delta all gather here to watch these children display the beauty of the work of art and relive the memories of some of Professor Wole Soyinka's works. One thing this gathering is set to achieve is to inculcate into the younger ones the principles of unity and the need to embrace qualitative education, an agenda the Bayelsa State Governor, Seriake Dixon, is propagating.
I want to create a new generation of leaders like you and your colleagues across our state. People who will understand their history, understand their culture, understand their language, and also end up as completely, wholly molded leaders.
Nigeria's unity and the call for restructuring is also discussed, and the Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka says all the country needs at this time is a forum to negotiate the country's existence.
Please don't tell me Nigeria, as it stands, is non-negotiable. For me, this is a fallacy. The nation has got to be negotiated. Negotiation includes ensuring that there is no marginalization. Negotiation has to do with control of resources. Negotiation has to do with structuring the nation in a way in which the components, the constituents, are not feeding an over-bloated center to the detriment of their own development.
It is obviously a day to discuss Nigeria using literary works, and many of the participants here say the coming generation have so much to learn, a legacy the Bayelsa State government is gradually laying a foundation for.